We're going to talk a little bit about naming molecular compounds. Now these compounds are composed of nonmetals, so they're not composed of ions, they're not ionic compounds. So it doesn't make sense to figure out the ratio of them by looking at the charges on the ions. In this case, we actually have to name them based on the number of atoms that are present or connected together. There are some basic rules that we name them in order of group number. We use Greek prefixes. We don't use Greek prefixes if there's one for the first atom. And so these compounds are going to illustrate the rules for naming these. So this CO has one carbon, and typically we'd say monocarbon, but we don't put mono on the first atoms as a prefix. We do on the second one. So this would be carbon monoxide. And you'll notice that we don't actually put mono oxide. We don't double the O's that are there. We have to differentiate this so that they both have a carbon and they both have an oxygen. And so we would call this carbon dioxide. Okay. When we start to get more than one atom for that first element, we have to indicate that. So N2O5, we would say this is dinitrogen and we don't say penta, we don't put the A in there because of the oxygen, oxide. And so we use our same rules no matter what. If the binary compound contains a hydrogen, we name that like we name ionic compounds. We assume that we can figure out the number of hydrogens that are bonded because if it had a +1 charge, which it would if it was an ionic compound, it would be neutralized by this. So we would name this just hydrogen sulfide. We wouldn't say dihydrogen sulfide like these other binary compounds. Binary compounds that are composed of hydrogen in a nonmetal, and hydrogen is a nonmetal, we just know based on the fact that hydrogen would have a +1 charge if it were to bind to something, and sulfur would be a -2, and so we know that just from treating it like an ionic compound. We know hydrogen sulfide is actually H2S. Unlike these compounds over here, where we have to give a prefix in order to know how many are present.